All right, good evening and welcome. We are at the performance for Letters Without Borders, and I am going to be featuring many of our artists from tonight and our performers, and they're going to be sharing their stories. So, welcome. My first person that I would like to welcome is Johnny Rose.
Wow. Thank you.
Johnny, thank you so much for being here. And so, because of our mic and our background noise, we're going to have to just speak up just a little bit. And I might just bring this a little bit closer.
Hey,
There
hi.
we go. Hi. You did a fabulous performance
Thank you.
today. So, tell us a little bit about what you brought to the show for Letters Without Borders today.
I spoke about immigration from the perspective of a New Yorican, a Puerto Rican, right? We're not immigrants because they own us. So I thought that was an interesting perspective because as a little girl, it was romanticized, the immigration story, and they came over in ships, and I was convinced that I was, Anastasia. I was like, maybe I'm Anastasia, maybe I'm a lost princess, and all these things. Just, it was very romanticized and beautiful, and the excitement of the Statue of Liberty, and the names of the immigrants were in the books, and that didn't belong to me. I wasn't from anywhere, over there or here. I wasn't American. I didn't know I was American until I was 12. If you asked me what I was, I said Puerto Rican. So I thought it was really cool that they give me a chance to talk about that from that perspective, and just the marketing scheme that Lady Liberty was. She now what she seems like.
that terminology, the marketing scheme, which is really what it is, right? Those messages. So how did this process of creating this poetry and writing about your story and reflecting on it, how has that impacted you, or how did it affect you just in this process?
It allowed me to really consider my relationship with this country, with my citizenship, with the relationship that the Freemans had. I mentioned also. The history of the Statue of Liberty isn't really well known at all. And the pedestal that she stands on was the Freemen. They had their own newspapers. The freed enslaved people, they had their own newspapers, and they raised funds, and they were incredibly like enterprising, right? And these aren't things that we know about. We don't know that. We don't know that the Statue of Liberty stands on a pedestal that freed enslaved Africans had, generations. They were so excited about this gift that was meant to be a gift because America had finally freed the enslaved peoples. And it's like, oh, that's not known. We don't know that. So I just dropped all these little seeds in there, just hoping to give people little threads to pull on and say, well, what did that mean? Because clearly, you're not going to get it from the poem. But if it gives you something to think about and something to chew on and something to research, then I think I did my job as a New Yorican poet.
I think you did an amazing job. I got to experience it all, and I know that you dropped so many different pieces. So in that, you said we don't learn this, right? You've said this so many times, and we don't, right? So how did you learn this? What was your research process? Was it a combination of family stories, or is it research that you did historically?
The internet is an incredible machine. I just went from one place to the next, and like it was like hours down the hole. Like when I was in school, doing all my sociology classes, I was like, I want to talk about things that are important. So then I would look up things like that, like what when we were discussing the Industrial Revolution. She was the greatest symbol of Industrial Revolution. Why were the enslaved people freed? They all of a sudden the country got they all of a sudden got this conscious and just thought it was wrong. That's not what happened. So why did it happen? What did it have to do with the machines? What did it have to do with the direction that the United States wanted to go? Stuff to look up.
And I think what you're elevating is the importance of the narrative behind the economic gain from it, right? And all the different layers and pieces that go into it. Thank you so much, Johnny, for sharing your story and for sharing your poetry. And where can we check you out if our audience wants to come and they want to follow you and see your other poetry?
Please do follow me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Twitter's
And your handle?
at Johnny_Rose_poet. And just Johnny Rose, JANIROSE. Google me. You'll find me around there.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your voice and your story and for all of that history. That was beautiful. So,
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we've got more people coming. Would you just
Sure,
point them in our direction, and I'll entertain us until then. I love it. I love it. I see we've got Stephanie here. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for showing up from our Renters Union. Thank you so much. And Johnny is bringing over some more audience members for us to, or not audience members, sorry, some of our performers, our artists, to come and share their stories. I have met so many amazing people, and this performance, this show was amazing in all of the intricacy and the sensory. Right now, there's a lot of noise, but what you can hear actually is that the audience had an opportunity to create their own one-line poems and are now using AI technology to take those words and put them on the screen. It's pretty amazing. I would really encourage you to go to Brown Girl Interrupting on Instagram and go follow my story and my post, because I have been posting about this evening this entire time. And oh my goodness, we have the woman. Come please. This is Clara Francesca. It is so wonderful to see you again. And another interview, but this one is about this amazing show that you have cultivated and crafted with so many different voices and so many different sensory experiences. Please tell us a little bit about the story behind Letters Without Borders, what it is for you.
Thank you. Am I speaking in the right spot?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you everyone for streaming in. Really, honestly, thanks for coming. This is really beautiful to be documenting this, because we've had most audience members come up to us, share a personal story of how they relate to either immigration or their identity in the land that they live in. And so it's been obviously very, I think, opening up for people's feelings to talk about it and bring up things that are uncomfortable or complicated or challenging or oppressive to some group. The thing that made some group feel more welcomed is the very thing that oppressed someone else. And so it's a conversation I think that is important to have. It's a delicate conversation, but tonight I'll focus on your question that you asked me. We did this piece called Letters Without Borders, which for me was about finding the commonalities and togetherness between different groups, between groups that historically want to be isolating or are forced to be isolated or are tribalist in nature, and what are the common things that bring us together. And I think I shared this with you personally, that I'm an Italian-Australian immigrant. I now live in New York City. I've had a very, very lucky, wonderful life. And it perplexed me when I would see Italian community members here in New York speak with such disdain to other community groups in America, the same way that I remember my ancestors being spoken to when they immigrated to Australia, and the sort of absurdity of why are we so cruel to one another? Whereas the truth is, when I immigrated to the States, I was sending messages, letters, texts, phone calls to my parents saying, I love you, I miss you, I miss our good food, or I've discovered this thing in New York that's really interesting I never thought about. And then when you speak to other immigrants, there often are these core human needs that are discussed and talked across the lands.
And it's beautiful. And I would say I love that you've brought up so many complex questions about immigration, and so many of the pieces brought up those questions as well. But and I appreciate that, like from you, what I learned a lot is your lessons of those assumptions we make about the immigrant experience and about even just how we engage with talking about our land. I would love to hear a little bit more about your perspective on coming as an outsider, as an immigrant from Australia to America. What have you learned and realized about the way that we make these assumptions and the patterns that we have as in racism and that have been steeped in those things as a country?
Yeah. So I'm not an American citizen. I'll give your arm a break. You sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Beautiful arm, beautiful sleeves. I want to give a call. Yeah, this is a big question and a big conversation. For me, the core is fear. I think really when people are afraid, they make horrific assumptions about one another to protect, and then they justify really horrific behavior. And I put horrific in the category of even speaking cruelly to someone when there's no cause for it. That is the same behavior that I saw in Australia. In terms of land, I am a white fella in Australia, and that comes with certain access and lack of access to information. One thing that I remember very vividly as a child in Australia was having a welcome to country equivalent of a land acknowledgement, or just acknowledging the soil on which we're standing, and the elders and the community members that were there past, present, and future, and are there past, present, and future. And it's not a solution to anything, but I remember that being very conscious in my childhood, and I would go to every single theater performance and that would be acknowledged, or any ceremony that would be acknowledged. And there's a counter conversation to the performative nature of that, and now that we're talking about it more publicly in different countries, it's a very good conversation to have. I don't pretend to be an expert, but in terms of my relationship with land, I was baffled when I came to America to work with a fabulous physical theater company called City. They're Japanese American fusion, and we were stomping on the earth, right? The whole dance technique is this really rich Japanese American hybrid stomp into the earth. And I therefore asked, well, whose earth, what is the community group that I'm standing on? Who are the people's unceded lands from which I'm standing? And at the time in 2013, nobody seemed to really want to talk about it in community groups that I thought were pretty liberal and open-minded. And I was horrified that this was not a conversation that was being had, even at a minimalistic performative level, even though that's not a great solution. And then that perplexed me even more, because we were touching the earth every day with bare feet as part of the technique. And I'm sure there's an argument. I don't know. What do you think? Is it ignorance, fear, shutting them out?
I wonder
hating?
if it's erasure sometimes.
Erasure, of course.
Is what it feels,
Yeah,
right?
that
It is
feels
an
like that.
erasure. And Johnny actually said this just before when I interviewed her earlier, but this idea of, what parts of history we're really teaching people,
Yeah.
right? What are the messages? What's the, she had a great phrase and now I already lost it, but it was about the idea, what's our marketing campaign?
Right, her poem
What's
is called
our marketing
Made Liberty.
campaign?
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
what it is, right? Is
Yeah.
again that too, when you don't acknowledge the existence and the current existence, not just historical existence, right?
Yeah.
Of individuals and their contribution and their ownership of spaces, then we erase them. We erase their existence. So that is so powerful. And as we're as we're talking about this show, which was really powerful on so many different levels, I have to say, and as I hope that there's a video that comes out that others can see, because I couldn't capture it all as best as I tried on Instagram and live and things like that. But what do you hope that all the audience members are walking away feeling and thinking about as they leave today?
I hope two things. I really hope that they are self-loving themselves and the skin they're in, literally, whatever that means to them. And then the second thing I'm hoping for is it gives them, well, probably our audience are very compassionate anyway, but a little bit more compassion when they walk through the world, and excitement to get to know one another rather than this fear, assumption, like you're saying, and erasure. And I wish for a third thing. I like to learn where I have shut something off from my consciousness. And so I hope other people want to open up the spaces that have been erased or I mean, I pause because humans cannot be erased even if society wants to do that. So I guess I want to honor that there are humans behind these stories, and they're not erased, but yeah, to sort of talk more about that.
To elevate, right?
Elevate,
is
thank
the big
you.
thing, right? That opposition. And I do see Josh says, Mr. M, congrats to XRE. Yes, and that is the reason we are here today. Well, I am here today because of Mr. M and our connection to the Queens World Film Festival. And you have to go check out also Cara's film. #Make Us Visible, the documentary.
The whole Queens World Film Festival is like an extension of this conversation in the core, right? Like the stories are of immigrants, different nations coming through,
Yes, definitely. And I see Stephanie also has a comment saying, I always say that people don't see with their eyes, they see with their assumptions. And that's very, very true. So please come and check out the show. Well, we're
Yes.
here in New York until tomorrow still.
Yes.
So definitely. And
A
what's
workshop
happening tomorrow?
So tomorrow I talk about, my 3 desires. One being that I want audiences to walk through the world a little bit more accepting of one another. So tomorrow audiences can try that out in this really beautiful poetry workshop we're going to have. We're going to have Johnny leading us through feeling-based home workshops. Jae Young is going to lead us through a Mandarin style workshop. Karan is going to lead us through a Ghazal style workshop. And then we have Lee on the typewriter making little poems. And in these workshops, we're going to encourage the audience to write a poem in one of these 4 styles about their relationship to immigration. And then they're going to present it at an open mic, which will be really, really special. Really special, I think.
I love it. And I love the interactive aspect to make it also that the audience become a part of this. And it does become community then, because it's collective voices come together, which is beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for creating all of this. And definitely please send some people our way so that my way. My way is just me.
I have 2 seconds to share one other thought
Yes,
to the world.
please.
So you mentioned about erasure and elevation, and it made me realize, and I said sort of like, I like learning things that I've blocked out to sort of expand my consciousness. Recently, as we're preparing for the show, first of all, my awareness for other humans, which is generally pretty on, expanded even more. So I think as we ask questions and engage with each other through art, we become more compassionate just subconsciously to one another. I started noticing friends' journeys in a different way. And then the other thing that really blew my mind, this projection of AR behind us, I'm not against digital art at all, but this for me is a really scary and exciting conversation of where the AI, where the artificial intelligence, as it gets more sentient, is going to take us. And if we look at this conversation of immigration, from choice immigration to refuge immigration to a whole heap of breadth of immigration, and the work, labor, employment, and what we've done historically to one another as humans, and ostracized one another and used each other and not really valued one another, the AI world, as more things become sentient and robots can do more, does bring up this, refreshes this conversation around labor and work and human value. The utopia is the robots work for us, and that's wonderful, and all humans get to live a leisure life. But the reality, and we see it definitely in the economic gap and the immigration gap, is that it's probably going to be a much more stratified society. And so that's sort of why I wanted to put this up with our colleagues, to say, let's not forget the humanity as we're navigating these conversations about artificial intelligence. And I don't know if I personally can talk to these enormous corporations and make changes, but I don't know, hopefully if we're all connected to someone who knows someone who knows someone in those workplaces, that they don't forget the humans that they might be taking advantage of.
And humanity is the key, I think, right? It is the key of creating collective consciousness. It's the key of creating empathy, is seeing each other as those human beings and the experiences that we have and the commonalities, which I think is so beautifully come together.
Great taste in lace.
Yes,
Check this out.
I love it. The looks is fantastic. I mean, if nothing else, come for the looks, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Clara. I love it. I've got more books. And another amazing creator of this program. Please come and sit. This is Anne Wichman. And I am so excited to be here and to have you here to talk about just this experience. So tell me a little bit about just what has compelled you in your thinking about Letters Without Borders.
I think there were different layers. One layer was me being a migrant. When I moved from Germany to the US, I first moved to Massachusetts, and I had a friend from Turkey, and she was darker skinned than I was. And one night we went out to a bar, and it was clear, you can hear my accent. I mean, it's very clear that I'm not from the US, right? And she also had an accent. So it was clear we were both migrants. And it was very clear that I was apparently the good immigrant and she was the bad immigrant, just because of the color of our skin. And this made me think a lot. Since then, I'm very aware that it's totally random that I'm apparently the good immigrant. I come from a country with a horrible past. At the same time, apparently it's okay to be German and an immigrant, and all these difficulties and all these layers, and to see where my parents came from. My mother was born in Germany, which is now Poland. So after World War II, the whole family lost everything. And my father is from Western Germany. They kept everything. And just also to see within Germany these random things. My mom was a German refugee within Germany, and all these layers and traumas that were in my family because of that. Um, it's a lot to fight through because I felt that these layers were embedded in me emotionally, and I wanted to be free of that. And that's a long journey.
That is a long journey. So I do want to say, you said that it's random, but you mentioned skin color and accents, right? And so I don't know how random necessarily those things are. It's very clear sometimes which immigrants are accepted and which are not. But that's a layered
that's true.
layered
What I'm
conversation.
saying, what I think is random is where you're born. Why am I the lucky one being born in Munich? Is this lucky or what? This is totally random. I did not do
Yeah.
anything for that. I just was born in Munich, and this means I'm the good one. What? This is to me totally random.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the honesty of talking about that, right? Because not a lot of people notice those differences always in the experiences of how immigrants are treated and the differences between which immigrants are treated differently, right? You say it. I think I saw it. You said which immigrants do we value, right? You also mentioned something when you had your film. You talked about your connection between music and communication. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think I'm a musician. Even when I was a kid, I felt that that's my thing. And when I thought about talking about communication, I figured, how can I talk about it? My brother, my family is very private. They're not on social media. They don't want to be on the internet. And I figured I cannot just show my family pictures here to talk about my family without, like, I don't know, without hurting them or like doing something that they will not appreciate, you know. And so I figured, how can I actually talk about this communication with my brother? And I thought, well, music is always my thing. This is my form of communication. And then I came across a couple of tools that I thought would be fascinating to try out to actually like incorporate all my ideas. And so I realized that through music.
And you captured it beautifully. Beautifully, I think. You know, I know you said you didn't have the pictures, but I could feel the connection between your brother and you through the words that you use, through the language, and that coupling it with music and the I don't know the terminology for it, but the electronic aspects of it, right? Like that AI, is that AI?
No, this was just a modular synth sounds. Basically what I did, and that's kind of exciting for music nerds, I took photographs also of my brother. I didn't show them. So also my brother, is his face is in the music. But what I showed to the audience is I showed them screenshots of our text communication. And these screenshots I transformed into wave sounds, and these waves, these pictures are modulating the sound. So the sound of a song that I composed is encapsulating this whole text messages that my brother and I share.
I love that, and it's beautiful, and it really did. I mean, I could feel again. I could sense that communication through just the modulation of the images of the sound going up and down. So I have one last thought that I would love to hear, because in your creation, your piece that you created, you said, "I really like New York City. There's room for me here." Can you tell me more what that means for you and
Yeah.
why there's room for you here, but maybe you didn't feel that in other places?
I was born in Munich, and I think I'm a very typical German, but within Germany, I'm not so typical. So within the microcosm of Germany, I was always the odd one out. I'm a very enthusiastic person, and I'm also a very loud person considered for German people. I felt like I grew up in a library. Germany, the country, is like a library. You say something, and everybody's like, shh, shh, not so loud, not so loud. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, I can still remember I was 3 years old and I had something really exciting that just happened to me. I ran over to my best friend and her grandmother was there. So I told her, I'm like, can you imagine what just happened to me? And she's like, hey, not so loud. And I'm like, no, you have to listen to what happened to me. She's like, don't yell. And I'm like, okay, I was sure grown-ups are stupid, because you wouldn't listen to what my message was, but how I was transporting it. And this was from the very beginning. In my life in Germany, I was always too much. I was always too loud. I was always too something, you know? And New York, I moved around, and I've been to a lot of places in this world. And I felt like when I moved to New York City, I can still remember the drive from the airport to, we arrived in Newark, and we were sitting there, and we were looking out the window and seeing downtown New York City. And I felt like, this is it. There's so many people, and they're all from all over the world. And they're from all different aspects, communities, backgrounds. It's so full here that there's room for me here. Because it's not this, and you're the odd one out, and you're the odd one out. But there's everybody together in this weirdly, densely populated place. I don't know. It's just an emotional thing. There's no logic to it, but that's all actually.
But there doesn't need to be, right? I think emotions speak so much to how we process the world, right? And where we fit in. I love that you shared that, because I think about that idea of sometimes immigrants come to new places and they find a home that is different from the home that they came from, that is more accepting. And it does happen. And I know for myself, just being brown, I've always challenged this idea that I haven't always fit in with my traditional group of whom I was born into. And I found my community and soul tribes and so many other individuals and so many other cultures and races. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you so much for all of this. Where should we go to learn more about you, your music, your poetry, your writing, everything, so that we can follow you?
Yeah, my artist name is She's Excited, and my website is she's-excited.com. I'm also on Instagram, she's_excited. If you type in She's Excited music, you will find me.
You will find her,
Thank you.
definitely. And Stephanie says, I miss that energy and diversity that is so unique to New York City. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So Stephanie was
Come
also
back.
lived in New York City for some time, and now she's like me in the DMV. But thank you so much,
you.
Anne. And I know we have some more interviewees coming to share their stories of this experience. And thank you so much to all of our just spell it as it is. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. All right. Hi. And how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are
I
you?
love it. I'm fantastic. Julia. Hi, Julia, and welcome. So, Julia, tell us a little bit about what your contribution has been to Letters Without Borders.
My contribution was my photography. My photography, like most of them, like except one picture, was done. Everything was done here in New York.
Yeah. And what was it that you were capturing through your photography?
And capturing the life of the city, the life of immigrants, the life of everyone who lives in the city.
Would you learn in this, like in your photojournalism, what were some of the stories kind of that came through in your pictures? They're beautiful, and you definitely should go and come and check out some of these pictures. But what are the stories that you felt came through in your photojournalism of the immigrant experience in New York?
So my main, goal was to show people from abroad, also to Americans, like pretty much to everyone, the things to like. How can I say? I'm sorry. The things, the way that I see them, I wanted people to see something that I see in this perspective from architecture, people. And I only think that you can like really show people the real life of the city and the real life of immigrants only through pictures or videos.
So have you always been doing photojournalism, or what was your original form of media?
Well, I would say I'm a former journalist for 10 years. I've been writing articles mainly before, but the photography was mostly my hobby. And then at some point, one of British publishing houses I used to work with, they noticed that I'm in like in photography world, and they were like, wow, like we never knew that you're in photography business. I was like, oh no, I'm not in business. I'm like, it's my hobbies. They were like, oh, can you just switch the department? So we're gonna give you the assignments for photography. And I've been in Japan at that time. I was like, oh, you sure that you want me to switch the field? They were like, yeah, go try. Here is the assignment. Do this, do that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that. And this is how it came to be. It just happened naturally. It was never planned, but it was mostly my passion. Now it turned into my profession.
That's a beautiful thing, though, for a passion to turn into your profession, right?
Yeah.
So what has it been like being a part of this particular show and just seeing all of the different things? Like, what has that been for you?
It was very exciting because like usually, like a lot of people in my field, they know me also here, in New York, but there were some like people that I never met in my entire life, and I was a little bit of a nervous because I saw people like taking a look on my photos, and I was very curious about what they think about that. How do they see them? How do they feel when they see that?
What do you hope for them to feel and see when they look at your photos?
Hmm?
What do you hope for them to feel and see when they look at your photos?
I really expect them to see at least this vibe of this specific vibe of the city, like this specific atmosphere that I was going like through the city in the morning. Usually I take the pictures in the morning mostly, and I want people to feel the way that I feel in a specific moment.
I love it. They're beautiful photos.
Thank
They're
you very
beautiful
much.
photos. And again, I know I said this to you earlier, but I really feel like they capture the essence of stories of individuals, of the humanity. Really going back to what Clara had said earlier, she said this is really about capturing the humanity that we miss when we don't know each other's stories the same way. So that is a beautiful thing. And so where can everyone follow you, and what's the best way to continue to learn more about your work as a photojournalist?
It's on Instagram, definitely. It's definitely my Instagram is julia.shinkareva. SHINKAREVA.
Thank you. And thank you for spelling it all out to make sure we get it. I will put it all in our details in the link below as well, so everybody has it. Thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciate you sharing. It was lovely to meet you. Will you be here tomorrow?
Yep.
Well, I'll see you
Yep.
again tomorrow then, definitely.
Perfect.
Thank you so
See you
much.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience. I love it. All right. And Mr. M says, that was a question. Please sending more people is great. Thank you so much. Hi. Yes, come on in.
Right.
How are you? So welcome. And I have Karen Rothad with us. Thank you so much. Yes. So if we don't get to everybody today, I will be here again tomorrow. I love it. So, Karen,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about what your contribution to Letters Without Borders?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an honor to be part of XRE and their movement and their work. It's Letters Without Borders. So the idea of what I'm doing here is I've got an installation that's my collective called Alfaz Collective. The idea of Alfaz is to bring people together to encourage people to write more and obviously get more people to read their stuff. There's people that have something to say and some people that need their words. So I put out a call to artists around the world and writers around the world to send us their stories about immigration. So these are stories from people from different countries and different backgrounds, a combination of stories, reflections, poems that have been submitted, and they're presented on the wall today for people to read. And we're hearing really good things that people could connect to some of their words. And then tomorrow I'll be running a workshop on ghazals, how to write ghazals, giving examples of ghazals, how the history about it, why it's so impactful. It's going to be in English. It's an Urdu, Persian, Hindi form of poetry. It's been written in that form for generations and years and decades, centuries, really. So we're running a workshop, and then I'll also be performing one of the pieces I've written that's related to immigration tomorrow as well.
I love that. And I have to say, just as a personal note, the beauty of guzzles is that guzzles really are that connection for immigration. I remember going to auntie parties with many women and men, and watching these immigrants, right, that are my parents' generation, just connecting so much to the poetry and the language of guzzles that connects them to home. So it's a beautiful thing, and I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And just what are you hoping that that as people experience the workshop and as they experience your all of the poems that you have posted, what do you want the audience to take away from all of this?
I suppose a sense of familiarity, that they are not alone in their feeling. The writers have written these pieces because they have stories to tell, and the reason I have set up Alphas and the reason I encourage people to tell those stories is because other people need their words, whether it's to relate, whether it's to think from another perspective. So if I can get people to leave having read some of those poems and feel some sense of comfort and familiarity and community, that would be amazing. As far as the Guzzle workshop tomorrow, it's really a way for people to just learn about a new form of poetry that has obviously infiltrated South Asia and the Middle East for such a long time, but hasn't really made its way out into the Western world for obvious reasons, because it's an Urdu, Hindi, Persian form of poetry. But I want people to learn that this is a really cool form of poetry that has been written in English for a little bit and learn something new. I think that's and show a bit of my interest in heritage. I've got a very personal connection with guzzles, coming from a very musical family. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here
course,
with me.
thank you so much.
And definitely, if you're in New York, please come to the Guzzles workshop, to all the workshops, because there's going to be some amazing writing opportunities for all of our audience members. And thank you, Karan. And you can follow him on Alphaz, Instagram. Anything else?
That's right. Alphaz at Alphaz Collective, and then my Instagram is at Karan Rathod, KaranRathod.
Thank you so much,
course.
Karen. Have a beautiful night,
Thank
and
you.
I'll see you again tomorrow.
Yes, see you later.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. And we have another one of our artists who's also leading a workshop tomorrow. I'm very excited to introduce you to Jiayan. Hello, how are you? Welcome. And so nice to have you here. I loved your poetry today, and it was beautiful. You shared so much. So, can you tell our audience a little bit about what you contributed to Letters Without Borders today?
So I just read a poem about like the hesitations, should I stay here or to go? Because every time when I order like some food at any restaurant in US, they will ask you for stay or to go. So like, although it's for the food, but sometimes I always feel it's like people asking me, are you going to stay here or to go? Yeah, but like, how can we stay here? How can we get a visa to stay here? It's like always a headache. Yeah, so I just read about the headaches I had, like all the immigration had. Yeah.
So thank you. No, I appreciate that, because that's that symbol of stay or go, right? So tell us a little bit about your own immigrant experience to America. When did you come here? What was that like for you?
So I came here 5 years ago for my MFA programs, and then after that I got an artist visa to stay here. But like for the pandemic, I haven't gone back home for 4 years. Yeah, I haven't seen my parents for 3 years. So it's like it's really horrible because the situation in China is so bad. And my grandfather passed away last week, and like I feel so like heartbreak, and I have to do this project with Clara, and then Clara said, oh, just like send us some photos of your ancestor, your grandparents, and send some picture. And I just saw my grandfather's picture coming from the big screen. It feels unreal because like I know that we are really, really close, and now I can only see it on the screen. I have to perform this. I work so hard. Like this is like Thanksgiving way. I'm still working because as an artist, we need to work, especially immigrating as artists, like we need to work almost every day to get the credit and then to apply for the green card to stay here. We love art, but it's like also the situation that we have to work every day.
My condolences for your loss of your grandfather.
Yeah.
And it it is hard. Like it sounds like obviously that there's this constant need
Yeah.
to keep working and
Yeah.
keep proving sort
Yeah,
of to some
also-
extent.
Yeah, also I feel immigration is the idea. It's not you naturally understand it. For me, like I came here as an international student. Like I don't think, like I understand that when I just got there, because I feel, for me, I'm a privileged person in China that I have the privilege to come here to study. So I was thinking my life is pretty good. I always think, oh, I'm a like international student. I'm not a refugee. But now I really feel like a refugee. Yeah, because the situation changes so much in China. Everyone try to escape, and I cannot go back. Yeah, so like I feel I understand more about like other immigration, like from other countries right now. And I feel still a lot of people don't understand it, but I mean, yeah.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And that is like there's a lot of sacrifice in this experience, it sounds
Yeah.
like. And you've made a lot of sacrifices, but at the same time it sounds like then you found those common experiences with others as well.
Yeah.
So in being a part of this, and you particularly did a poem that I captured a little bit of on Instagram as best I could, but you did a poem that was with two other women, with Clara and Johnny, who we also got to hear from. Tell me a little bit about what that experience of creating a poem that was a collective reading was like.
It feels really, really different. Yeah, because so Clara will separate the poem into sections, and then I feel everyone's voice and everyone's text like intermingle and mixed and like echoes with each other. We didn't like read each other's script at all, so we just like put them together. It naturally mixed. That means like actually we're thinking about the same thing. We're sharing the same fate. Yeah, yeah, that's like a common like fate for all the immigration. Yeah.
That was wonderfully said, and I think you did right. You all shared these powerful connections of of kind of the loneliness, but also that loss, and then the gain that comes
Yeah.
with those experiences.
Also, we stand in the triangle, and it feels like geographically, like I mean, from China, Clara is from Italy, and Jenny is from Puerto Rico. So it's like actually we're like standing in the triangle, like in on the map, and then we also hold different like perspective, because like I'm a person of color and Clara is a white person, and she also write about the embarrassing situations, like people judging her said, oh, you're a white person coming to US, but it's still immigration, it's still hard, it's not their home country. And I was like, in China, like as a privileged person, you go out, like your relative will like blessing you, say mix some blood with the white people, because Chinese people, they are racist, they really like white people, they really want, it's like a congratulation, you marry a white person. That's what they want you to do. So like they didn't realize what they said is problematic. Like we share our feelings together, and then we create understanding. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and you create a lot of understanding. I think that story of immigrants who have then those racist beliefs about other immigrants and who they lift up is pretty common in a lot of the stories that we heard today. So thank you so much, An Young. I really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you sharing your story. It was beautiful, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Yes. Oh, yes, you're having a workshop tomorrow. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your workshop? So if you're able to come, please come and attend Jean Young's
Oh,
workshop.
yes. So I'm going to teach some like traditional Chinese poetry form called Tang Kuo. So it's like a poetry form combine 4 nights of poetry. It will be fun. It's like very playful.
I love
So
that.
come join us tomorrow.
And where can they follow you?
Follow me at Instagram, and my name is Zhaoyang Li, and I just opened a bookstore, a speakeasy bookstore in Jersey City called Accent Sisters. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Tell me what is it's called Accent Sisters.
Yeah.
So what is there a certain theme to your bookstore?
Yeah, so it's mostly like Chinese books and Chinese book in translation. Uh, so it's like a female and LGBT lead space. So our slogan is like straight men and dog can only come to our bookstore under the supervision of women.
Love it. All right. Thank
Okay,
you so
thank you
much.
so
Have a
much.
fabulous
Thank
evening.
you.
And I look
Bye-bye.
forward to your workshop tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much. And I love it. I see Kennedy Williams. Welcome, Kennedy. Salute to her. Salute to everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I am so grateful for everyone being here today and for checking in and being, checking us on as we're live. I think that those are all of our artists for tonight. But I will tell you, just as I experience tonight. I learned so much about so many stories, but I also saw so much connection and community and so many common stories across differences. It was a beautiful experience. I look forward to seeing more of the video coming out. And please go check out XRE, which is the Extended Reality Ensemble, Clara and Anne's organization, as well as I'm going to put all the links for the Instagram handles for all of these individuals that I've interviewed. And there's so many more. So please stay tuned for tomorrow when we'll have even more of the artists sharing their stories and a little bit about what brought them here, as well as I'm going to try to capture some of these workshops for you to be able to see these different forms of poetry and writing from all over the world. So thank you so much for being here, for engaging, for being in the chat. I appreciate all my Ranchers family for showing up. And definitely check out these artists and check out me, Brown Girl Interrupting, for more. And stay with me this weekend because I'll be here and I will be doing some new shows as well. So thank you so much and have a beautiful evening.